we have our moderator here. Lee's going to take the program the rest of the way. And I've asked him, before he starts moderating the rest of the program that's in front of you, to tell a story. And I would like you to listen to the story that Mr. Lee Williams tells. Lee, let's receive you.
Amen. Good evening, everyone. Like Bobby said, I wanted to tell you all, share a story with you. I wanted to share a story with you before we, as a part of the program. And I want to share a story with you about a young man that I know very well. This young man, he spent 7 years in prison. This young man, before he went to prison, was a 3.50 high school student. He had a full ride offered a scholarship to go to Langston University. But he didn't go to Langston University, although his college would have been paid for in full. No burdens on him or his family or his mother. But he chose the streets over college. He chose the streets because the streets were more appealing to him. He chose the streets because it was fast money, nice cars, women. So the streets was much more appealing to him. So he turned down the scholarship and walked away from it. And ultimately, this young man, he ended up going in and out of trouble, in and out of jail. That wasn't enough. Ultimately, he ended up in prison. And his story is much longer than what I'm going to tell you. I'm just kind of cutting across the field and giving you a synopsis of what this young man went through. This young man come from a single parent home. He was raised in the church. His mother was a God-fearing woman, so he was at church every Sunday. But like I said, the streets were more appealing to him. He walked away from a 4-year scholarship, Langston University. Ultimately, this young man ended up in prison. 7 years of his life taken away. When he went to prison, he was married. He had 3 boys. His wife divorced him. And he left his sons behind. Well, during his time that he was in prison, and keep in mind, this young man didn't kill anybody. He committed a lot of crimes, broke a lot of laws, but he didn't kill anybody. But his first 45 days in prison were spent on death row. And you're going to ask why. Because at that time, that particular time, prisons are overcrowded now. They were overcrowded then. So they were trying to find places to put inmates so they could get more in. So what they did is they took some of them and they housed them on death row. They called it H Unit. They still do call it H Unit, which death row, to my knowledge, is kind of sits on a hill and it's kind of underground. So it's isolated from the outside world. You don't see the sun, you don't see anything. Well, his first 45 days were spent there. And then they finally moved him to maximum security in McAlester. He left McAlester and went to Taft, Oklahoma. Finally, he got to a minimum security. And he's seen a lot of things happen within that 7-year time frame. So, you know, a lot of people think that everybody that goes to prison, and society thinks that everyone that goes to prison, they're bad people. Well, I don't believe that. I think that everyone that goes to prison aren't bad people. They just make bad decisions. And so that was a consequence of a bad decision by him not accepting that 4-year scholarship. He was a smart young man, but he made bad decisions. But I tell you, that young man is in this room right now. He's in this room right now, and you're looking at him. That young man has been out of prison 20 years. And I spend my time trying to help young people not to make the same mistakes that I've made. Right now I have a beautiful family. My wife, we've been married 19 years. Of those 20 years I've been out, we've been married 19 of those years. We have 7 children, 5 grandchildren, but I spend a lot of my time working with kids that don't even belong to me. Working with kids, trying to teach them not to make a bad decision. Because a bad decision can ruin your life. It's hard for you to get housing. It's hard for you to find a job. It's hard for you to just live in general. When you make that decision and you get in the system, to me, and this is just my opinion, it's a setup for you to fail. They want you to fail. They want you to come back. Why? Because they're making money off of you. But 20 years ago, when I walked out of that prison, I told that guard, "You will never see me again." He said, "We'll see." And I said, "We will." But he ain't seen me since. So if you know a young man that's not here tonight, like I said, I cut across the field on my story. That's not my whole story. My whole story would probably just blow your mind. But there's not enough time in the program for me to share that with everyone. But I do go around the city and share my whole story with groups and kids and people that want to hear it, because it will actually blow you away. With me still being here, I should be dead. But if it wasn't for the Lord that stood with me all that time, I would have been gone a long time ago. I want you all to know, if young men, if you're in here, stay in the church. I walked away from the church. That was my first mistake. My second mistake is I walked away from a 4-year scholarship. And my third mistake is I ended up in the penitentiary. But I'm not ashamed of it. Some people go to prison, they become ashamed of who they are. I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of what I've been through. Because it's a testimony to somebody to save another life. God bless you.